Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all the participants participating in the very, very important session today on India-US trade. Very delighted to welcome you all on behalf of India Business House. Friends, my name is Vikas Chaturvedi. I am the chairman and founder of India Business House, a single platform which is helping today Indian companies go global and helping Indian companies come to India. We are doing this webinar in association with PhD Chamber of Commerce. We are doing an association with TAI Amsterdam and also Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Netherlands, Amsterdam chapter. And this webinar is co-powered by Valuation Group. So friends, on behalf of all these institutions, I welcome you all for this very wonderful session on India-US. This topic, ever since it has been, for last 5-6 months, I would say, there has been a discussion. There has been a heavy moving upwards and moving downwards and moving sidewards that we have witnessed for business people in India-US corridor. Now, as all of you are aware, India-US corridor is the most important business corridor that exists for India, wherein the total trade of goods and services between India and US stands at $212 billion as per 2024 figures. And you see the main purpose of US has been to see how to cover up the gap of $45 billion with India. So US has been putting a tariff situation with almost all the countries. With India, it has gone a step further. Obviously, India has been sort of put on the highest rates so far as tariff is concerned. And to make it worse, we have seen the penalty that a further 25% which has been imposed on India because of the Russian sanctions. So obviously, normal tariff plus a penalty has made a very difficult situation for Indian businessmen to look and plan for the US business. Now, there is a lot of turmoil, there is a lot of disturbance, there is a lot of stress as to how to manage this. Companies have been thinking, shall we do A strategy? Shall we do B strategy? Shall we do C strategy? If we do strategy A, then how long is it going to sustain? Because the level of volatility that is existing between India and US, as we have witnessed in the last 6 months, has been over the roof for everyone. And we are in a very, very uncertain time given the situation of the geopolitical situation in the world, today, what is happening, tomorrow it may change, and day after tomorrow, it may further change. So given this all uncertainty on tariff, and as people say, I was in the US a couple of weeks back, I spoke to a lot of companies. I saw there was a lot of panic situation also for Indian groups based in the US. But everybody had one vision very clear, that India-US relationship is there to stay for long. It is not going to, all this is temporary. All what is happening is momentarily. It is just going to be, let's say, in a matter of months. This is just going to be history. Today, you might have seen there was a big announcement from Trump making a very special enclosure on India relationship and says, look, we are in one of the final stages of discussion on the trade deal that we want to close with India. So it clearly reflects the signage of a melting US. For the, let's say, for the last 3, 4, 5 months, we have seen that conversation, and obviously our Honorable Prime Minister also sort of endorsed his viewpoint and ensuring that he is there to support whatever it takes to build up the US relationship. So India-US relationship is not a thing of 5-10 years. It is a thing of 50-60 years. And it is going to redefine the way Indians will do business and the way the globe will do business. So India-US relationship of paramount importance as all companies look at this trade relationship. So given this uncertainty, friends, we thought to address the challenges, the stress, the question as to I should do A, I should do B, looking outside India, shall I set up in Dubai for the time being? Shall I set up in Vietnam for the time being? Shall I set up in Indonesia for the time being? Shall I set up somewhere in Europe for the time being? Given this uncertainty, and to explain the, let's say, the legal framework of the business of the trade tariffs, we have got very, very special speakers amongst us. So we are delighted to be joined by Mr. Amit Agarwal, who is a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers. He is an international tax partner. Then we have Mr. Anurag Sehgal, who's a principal at PwC India, a very specialized, again, professional. Then we have from US joining in Mr. Joseph Reeve, who's the director of Reeve CPA USA, and Mr. Pratik Dhanesha, director Reeve CPA USA. So I will quickly explain you the background of these top professionals who are going to navigate another 45 minutes to 50 minutes of this discussion of what is happening, of unfolding the legal framework. So about Mr. Amit Agarwal, he's a partner at PwC India. He's an international business expert with over 2 decades of experience in corporate structuring and advising, inbound and outbound M&A deals, overseas listing transaction advisory, and also known for HNI tax planning and advisory. So that's a brief introduction of Amit Bhai, a dear friend again. Thank you, Amit Bhai, for joining us for this very special session. Then about Mr. Anurag Sehgal is principal at PwC India, a former IRS officer with over 15 years of experience in customs and indirect taxes, having played a pivotal role in shaping international trade and legal framework and indirect taxation policy at Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Commerce, where he represented India in key international trade negotiations, including FTAs with EU, EFTA, and UK, and led coordination for India's 7th trade policy review. So a very warm welcome, Anuragji, to you for this session. We are highly elated to have your presence on this webinar. Then Mr. Pratik Danesha, Director, Reef CP USA, is a former auditor at PricewaterhouseCoopers and BDO International, now running his own firm in 12 years of tax and assurance practice across various industries and discipline in US and India corridor. And he's somebody who is, as a young face, making a huge difference in India and US corridor. Then about Mr. Joseph Reef, as a director of Reef CPA USA, a licensed CPA based in New York, is specializing in compliance and consulting across multiple industries, possessing a decade of experience, including roles at Anderson as forensic accountant and assurance professional. So friends, we have the top experts here to give you, to dissect, to unfold the entire gamut of what is happening on India and US trade tariff. So without any further delay, I would request Amit Bhai to set the context of the panic which is happening in India, the stress that the businessmen are looking at, the sectors like textiles, gems, jewelry, food, garments, carpets, footwear, industrial, huge sectors have been impacted. So large, especially a lot of SME and MSMEs have been impacted by this. So my request, Amit Bhai, to you is please address what are you seeing right now? What is the view? What is the mind right now of the promoters? How they're dealing with the situation? So if you could give an overall landscape of market, what is happening in India. Over to you, Amit Bhai. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas, and good morning, good evening to all. And I think thanks for setting the tone, Vikas Bhai. As you rightly said, I think what I'm seeing when interacting with business owners and business families is that I think I would categorize into 3 buckets. There's a feeling of uncertainty, a feeling of hope, and feeling that how we can minimize the impact of this disruption or these tariffs, whether the business impact or the financial impact. When I said a feeling of uncertainty, because the way the US government and Trump has been reacting to these tariffs, any businessman will feel uncertain and in a dilemma to decide to take an aggressive call or a defensive call. Feeling of hope, you mentioned rightly, because we still believe, considering the long-standing relationship with the US and the entire geopolitical environment, we still believe as business owners to see that, okay, someday it is only a temporary phenomena and possibly may fade away in due course, and hence that feeling of hope is there. And obviously in this entire uncertainty and feeling of hope, they still have to plan for to minimize this impact, the impact of these tariffs on the business, on the trade, and obviously overall the financial impact. What typically I'm seeing as we are seeing is that, and it is on the public domain, is primarily the sectors which are getting affected by this is the typically from an Indian context is the labor intensive sectors. You named textile, gems, marine, organic chemical, carpet, etc. All these are labor intensive sectors, and both have economic and social impact because they were employing a lot of people on ground. And in this all uncertainty, what I see is that people are still wary to take some bolder steps in terms of doing some major disruption on supply chain or moving it around. But still, as we move and as we discuss multiple strategies and alternative routes, people are considering to see that how they can minimize the impact, starting from, I think, for some long-term business families or long-term players, they are looking to explore newer markets because they feel that anyway they have to diversify and de-risk this US market. And this is also an opening because any difficult situation leads to newer opportunities as well. So I think what I'm seeing is people are wanting to explore newer markets and diversify their country risk and currency risk in terms of US. What we are also seeing that people are also looking to change their supply chain by looking for alternative sources and intermediary jurisdictions which has low tariffs. And typically these are companies or groups which are into more textile or certain or garments where possibly to getting a job work done or having a country of origin through these intermediate jurisdictions, you named Vietnam, Bangladesh, or some other countries, or maybe I'm seeing Nepal. People are using Nepal as often thing to get their supply chains shifted and maybe having a different country of origin. And so these are stopgap arrangements. And then for certain industries like gems and jewelry, obviously it is a very difficult situation because this is labor intensive and skill driven industries where you may not find that skill in other countries and possibly dependent on Indian workforce. I'm also seeing a lot of business restructuring, things like first sale to minimize the impact on the tariffs when the goods land in US. So I think multiple conversations, including bilateral trade agreement discussions, improving competitiveness, how become more efficient. So all these aspects people are considering. But what I say, somewhere the landing is not there. There are stopgap arrangement, but people are still unwary wary of, and they are not still be open to take bolder steps because tomorrow if things changes, then you can't keep changing the business or having done expenditure and then undo the business reaction. So I think this is what I would feel the current landscape is. My colleague Anurag is an expert and has been closely monitoring on these strategies and how to have that impact assessment for the groups and how to minimize those impacts and suggest alternative ways, both in terms of direct, indirect, and other things. So this is what people are in a exploratory stage, and some steps are taken in some industries, not everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Amit Bhai. Very useful. So you are broadly saying that people are restructuring the supply chain, maybe in certain cases temporarily. And obviously, these are the labor-intensive sectors which have been severely hit. So obviously, you see what is
Correct.
happening right now in the marketplace. And obviously, let us hear from Anuragji as to what is his viewpoint more so far as law is concerned. So Anuragji, welcome once again. Over to you.
So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting me, and thanks a lot, Amit, for setting the context. So I guess everyone here has, one uh, major question that till how much time will these tariffs last, and what should be the way forward in terms of tariff mitigation, as well as future resilience, because future resilience is very important. We'll request my colleague Saksham to share the deck while I'm speaking. But largely, in terms of for how long these tariffs will stay, I guess it is pertinent for us to have, a brief, maybe a minute or two understanding on the nature of tariffs. So essentially, there are three kinds of tariffs which are at play here. Reciprocal tariffs, which are country-specific tariffs. For India, the rate is 25%. The rate for many of the ASEAN economies, is 19 to 20%. The rate for countries like Japan and EU is 15%, but it has a special capping. The special capping that MFN plus reciprocal tariff cannot be more than 15%. But this is a reciprocal tariff rate. What other thing is important is, and what are the other two kinds of tariffs? The other two kinds of tariffs are, one is the sectoral tariff, wherein Saksham, you can move the deck, the way I'm speaking. Uh, so sectoral tariff, it is very important. You just go ahead to the tariff, because I'm explaining the tariffs. If you can go to that slide. So the sectoral tariffs are tariffs on the sectors. So the sectoral tariffs are imposed on auto products, on auto components, on steel, on aluminium, on certain kinds of copper products. And third kind of tariffs are country-specific tariffs, power for which are derived from different legislations, but these are country-specific. For example, you have a country-specific 20% on China. You have a country-specific 25% on India, which US is categorizing as Russian oil tariff. You have a country-specific tariff also in Brazil. So these are country-specific tariffs. They stack with reciprocal tariffs, but they are not actually reciprocal tariffs. So why this understanding is important? Because the question that till what time these tariffs will remain have one important linkage with the US, Court of Trade ruling. And now the matter has gone to Supreme Court, and the US Supreme Court announced that it will start hearing from November. So therein, the tariffs which are challenged are reciprocal tariff, which is under the IEEPA powers in US. So even if these tariffs, they face some challenge, what I was trying to explain is under US 232, that section, the sectoral tariffs are in place. And most of the sectors which are as of now exempted, sectors like pharmaceuticals, sectors like semiconductors, sectors like lumber, on all of them, US 232 investigation is going on. So indirectly, what I'm trying to say is, ultimately, the US president wants to maintain these tariffs. Even if the IEEPA gets challenged and the challenge, is not you know, uh, favorable to the U.S. president and U.S. Government, they already have power or recourse under a different section, so they can have sectoral tariffs on many of the products. So that being so, the tariffs in present shape may not continue. There may be a question on their continuance, but the tariffs in some other shape, in the forms of sectoral tariffs, etc., may continue for a longer period. But having said that, there have been recent communications. You can go ahead, Sakshan. There have been recent communications between India and the US, and these communications. So India's tariff is totaling 50%. I guess everyone understands. Reciprocal tariffs are 50%. Sectoral tariffs are 50%, but for auto and auto components, which are at 25%. So largely, if an Indian company, you are paying either nil tariff, additional tariffs, or 25% or 50%. We'll explain the difference between these three tariffs when I go to the tariff mitigation. But as of now, the steps taken by Indian government and the US government, in fact, they started much before these tariffs were announced. They started in February itself. But having said that, the bilateral trade agreement which is being negotiated, as of now, it is paused. And even though it is paused, there have been recent signs in past 3-4 days that the negotiation may be, again, uh, uh, beginning, or there may be a re-beginning of negotiations, and they may become even smoother. But we will have to see and watch carefully. The reason being, last time also these negotiations were almost completed in July, but when the goalpost changed. So this is to be very carefully seen. Uh, so, in a nutshell, to the first question which I was trying to answer, that businesses would want, whether these tariffs would continue, as of now, they seem to be continuing. Reduction in these tariffs, especially when the case before U.S. Supreme Court is ongoing, uh, may be a bit less likely scenario, unless some diplomacy prevails in, because of because if you are reducing or you are removing them, then maybe the case before the Supreme Court gets diluted. But having said that, the other more important aspect which the companies may have is how to mitigate these tariffs. Hope I'm audible.
Yes,
Hope I'm
yes,
Yes, sir,
audible.
you
you
are.
are
Yeah,
audible. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So other which important question which the US the based Indian exporters is how to mitigate these tariffs. Now to mitigate these tariffs, and Saksham, we can go to the tariff mitigation slide if possible. Yeah, please go to the next slide. Yeah. So the mitigation of these tariffs, what we have seen from our experience, is largely based upon the five aspects which companies are undertaking. One is working around rules of origin, and how do you work around rules of origin is if your product is originated say from a particular country X, it is being produced in thereafter manufactured in India. Some raw material or component was from X country, and the further production process happened in India. Say India is country Y, and then it is finally packed in some other country, that is country Z, and then exported from there. Companies are analyzing as per US rules of origin definition that if India is a higher tariff country, say 50%, can the other two countries, and if the other two countries are lower tariff countries, can their product be classified as a product of country X or country Z in this example? This is not an easy option. I will also, after summarizing all of these mitigation strategies, I will also let you know the risk so that you are aware, you take a well-rounded decision. So this is not easy because there are a strict condition of substantial transformation, and that means the product's identity must be created during that substantial transformation. So only if those conditions are satisfied, they can declare their country of origin as country X or Z instead of country Y, which is India. So this is first strategy. The second strategy is around customs valuation, which is known as first sale, wherein there has been a past legal case in US in 1992 and the evolution of law thereafter. That first sale for the consignment when it is destined for US can be considered as the value for transaction value for customs assessment. Companies are also exploring this option, but again, first sale is something structuring which takes time, and there has to be genuine reasons for this structuring. So this is also very, very important. The third is contract restructuring. One case wherein we supported, the company had a contract of DDP, delivery duty paid. So it was easier for them because they had a sister entity also in US to do the DDP compliance in US at the import leg and supply it to the customer's factory delivery duty paid. Now the companies are trying to renegotiate the contract and make it FOB or Ex Works from India. The reason being, now the companies expect that there can be a lot of audits and queries from the customs of US. As of now, they are overwhelmed by, you all know that US customs has a liquidation period which is 300 days plus. That tomorrow there could be audit inquiries and around classification, valuation, origin, and so on and so forth. And a US based importer or US based manufacturer may be better suited to answer them. Fourth is classification. Yeah, companies are looking at classification revalidation. So just to give you an example, a similar product can fall in sectoral tariff of auto and attract only 25%, and that similar product can also fall in the reciprocal tariff of 50% or sectoral tariff of steel and aluminum of 50%, depending on slight change in classification and the end usage. So companies are redetermining it because even if 25% cost is saved on supply chain, it is a huge benefit. And fifth, USMCA benefits, what we have seen is, in fact, one company we worked with, therein we have seen they were supplying components, now they are supplying sub-components to Mexico and utilizing it for manufacturing the products in Mexico and taking the benefit of this trilateral FTA, provided rules of origin are satisfied. In their case, it is getting satisfied for exporting it to US. So these are the five major strategies companies are taking. But again, I'll just highlight briefly and then maybe we'll pause. Are the risk areas, because companies need to know the risk areas very diligently. So first risk area is around customs valuation. So wherein I have mentioned first sale for export, related party transactions, etc. Therein, reduction in customs value without sufficient documented diligence or maybe incorrect or unsupported values is a big risk which we are seeing. Because in order to take an aggressive position and in order to save tariff, if you're taking this step, you should be prepared that there is a risk which may be initiated, audit may be initiated, questioning may be initiated by US in future. So this is important. Tariff cost mitigation is something which everyone is looking for. But how risk proof is your tariff cost mitigation? This is very important. Second is country of origin and marking. Therein, what we are seeing is conflicting country of export and country of origin, unsupported country of origin determination, transshipment, mismarking, all of these things are happening. Unsubstantiated usage of free trade agreement. So again, this is a risk which companies need to be aware of. Third is again very important on product classification, which I mentioned. If you are doing unvetted changes in tariff classification, changes without documented rationale support, again there is a big risk. So maybe if you want to explore that option, you should have 2 or 3 step process ending with the cross ruling in US to safeguard yourself. But these are the mitigation strategies and the risk out of it. So how to best optimize these from a trade war are largely companies are also doing in a long term, because my third question was how to build resilience in the supply chain, because that is important from future perspective. So therein companies are looking to diversify more and more. India has signed 21 FTAs, going to sign EU FTA and other 3-4 FTAs soon. So the idea is explore newer markets, diversify better, and align yourself with the newer non-tariff requirements in the newer markets. So companies are trying to do that. And maybe you can go to the last slide section. Companies are also trying, companies are also trying to reach out to the government for greater support. And one good option could be, if government is reworking some of the export incentives companies can represent. Third and very good aspect is, maybe more and more investment, and that is where we have this PwC's idea framework. Diversification, I've already talked about. Express, reaching out to the government, I've already talked about. But first and fourth, investment in more and more R&D, more and more technologically better products is also need of the hour to keep that edge. And simultaneously, in any case, in the age of AI, this becomes a requirement. Fourth, which is very important, is awareness. Now, this awareness, while is so important, that while you are taking the effort to mitigate, and there are many strategies, as I mentioned in a nutshell, but around those, you should also have awareness of two things. One is awareness of compliance, so that your mitigation strategy is risk free. And second is awareness around the fact that on which products, which tariffs are attracted. What is the right origin of the product? So basically, if I'm talking to any company, I generally advise that please do two basic things. One, what is the exact origin of your product? If it is a multi-country product, please do check it. Second, very important is please do a tariff mapping. If you have 25 products, 30 products, 35 products, please do a tariff mapping basis, HS code, description, end usage, and the various regulations of US. So these two things are very important. So with this, I will pause. The crux of this is tariffs may or may not stay longer, but in short term, we see them, being there in some or the other form. So the action is largely on the part of companies for tariff cost mitigation as well as for long-term resilience. But please do it carefully so that you do not attract punitive actions later. With this, I'll pause. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anuragji. I think this is a real full perspective in the last 15 minutes. I think you described it so beautifully, with especially emphasizing on this concept of idea. I was truly impressed with how you have summarized such a complex subject into such an easy manner in the process that it's easier. I think it's very easy for companies which are joining us today to understand and sort of implement. So be careful. While it may be a short-term thing, but prepare a long-term plan so that you ensure the resilience in your supply chain, resilience in your business model, the way you're operating, use of AI and everything, which makes you really robust to to circumvent any unforeseen future situation like what companies just saw in the last 6 months. So Anuragji, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. And I must compliment that, look, with this session getting so much of attention, we already crossed 100 people. In these days of webinar, you don't see 30, 40 plus people, but this webinar, we are already, 102, 103 people already, joining in. So absolutely top notch. Anuragji, thank you so much. Amit bhai, thank you so much. Now moving on to our next speaker, Ritik Ganesha, Director of Weave CPA. Ritik bhai, welcome to you. Please tell us, what is the mindset right now in US? How US government is looking at business coming from India? Tell us the pulse of US market. Tell us what is happening by Indian companies in the US market. There are over 2,000 Indian companies operating in the US market. So it's a very, very large number of Indian companies established into US, pan US, East Coast, West Coast, Southern Coast, Central side, Northern side. Indian companies are all over. So we want to hear from you. What is the take? What is the view? What is the temperature right now of Indian companies, of the US government? What is the, let's say, mahal in US? And also give us your perspective of what companies are doing in terms of setting up the strategy A, strategy B, in summing up and further adding to what Anuragji and Amit bhai just explained. Over to you, Pratik bhai. Once again, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vikas, and thank you for allowing me to join this webinar. And it's really a pleasure to be connected with so many people and so many companies back in India. Lot of pressures on Indian companies for sure. But what I see from the tariff perspective, it's not just the compliance issues and all those things, but there are a lot of strategies that the Indian companies can actually think and take in the US right now. And believe me or not, but it's not just investing money, but also government is supporting you. I mean, the US government is actually supporting Indian companies to come and invest over here with the very great subsidies that they are offering. So it's time. I mean, it's time for Indian companies to think and make their company local in the US. That's what I really believe in, and that's a really good long-term strategy. It avoids your tariff whether now or in future. All right. It avoids a lot of supply chain issues that is happening because of transshipments and all those things. So as Anurag really well explained, a lot of different mitigations. There was great inputs and great view on how the mitigation can happen. There's a lot of risk associated with it. Yeah, you guys can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously, as Anurag really well explained, everything, most of the interest, I mean, the tariff. So obviously, I mean, there's the import taxes on foreign goods to protect U.S. industries. It has increased up to 50% is what, I mean, the exempt industries also, pharmaceuticals, certain electronics. Because of this tariff thing, the compliances have increased triple times now in the world. Risks have become very, very stringent. All right, it was not like before now anymore. There is a huge supply chain shifts that we'll be seeing, and is already seen in the US market. Inflation, no doubt about it. I mean, the inflation is skyrocketed over here in the US because of the tariff thing. So there's lot of lot of room for the US government also to negotiate for the tariff later on, because it's just not sustainable with this inflation right now in the US. I mean, so I've categorized these tariff mitigations in terms of the time horizon basis. There's a short-term mitigation, there is medium-term mitigations, and there is long-term mitigation. Short-term mitigation, obviously, you have transshipment. When you see, I mean, there's a legal way of transshipment being done, and you have to follow the rules of origin, maintain the traceability documents, which is very, very important. Documentation is the most important thing in these kind of cases right now, and you have to maintain those things really well. Obviously, there is penalties if you get caught for any of the. I mean, as Anurag really well explained as to what is the legal and what is the illegal way of doing this transshipment, and there's a legal penalty of. I mean, if it's anything goes illegal, it would be up to 40% penalty on this. I see a lot of. I mean, medium term, the best way is to have manufacturing abroad. I mean, but again, because of because of the rules of origin and all those things that comes into picture, I don't think it's a really long-term vision that the Indian companies needs to take in this thing. But yeah, in terms of meeting some medium-term issues, manufacturing abroad is what we can see, because there is USMCA allows the free trade tariff. Vietnam, there are really good countries like Mexico, Vietnam, where you can have all these manufacturing being set up in those countries. Lower tariffs, cheaper labor, supply chain diversity. It's all the benefits of those things. Obviously, there is cons, which is upfront investment. You have to follow the local compliance. All those things, local compliance in those countries will also change. That's what I think, and that's what I believe. In fact, because of the U.S. Rules of origin, the way it is tracking all the countries right now, I think those things will have to be taken care of for the Indian companies.
Request everyone to please be on mute. So in 5 minutes we will start the Q&A session. So Pratik bhai.
Yeah. So coming to the I mean, the medium term, which I see is the I mean, there's a lot of things that I've seen in a lot of my clients is the tolling agreements that they have entered into. Tolling agreement, I'm not sure if a lot of people are not aware of it. Tolling agreement is basically the best strategy that the heavy equipment industries. It happens a lot in the heavy equipment industries, especially the chemical industry, where big giant companies in the US, they love tolling agreement. They love to get into tolling agreement because the entire I mean, it's a fixed fee based kind of agreement where the Indian companies can come and do the entire manufacturing process for such big companies in the US on a fixed fee basis. So there's investments happening over there in order to acquire those plants, but it gets rewarded with the fixed fee, and there's no pressure on sales or anything of that sort. We are seeing that happening quite a lot in the US. That's what I'm trying to say over here now. So that is one thing. There is tolling agreement. There's differences between partnerships, tolling agreements, joint ventures. A lot of different way of looking at the pros and cons when you're trying to enter into this kind of arrangements or restructuring in the US. But it's time for Indian companies to really come with some kind of restructuring arrangements and enter the US market. It's high time that the Indian companies come and do that in the US. And that's what US government would love. They are giving a lot of subsidies. They're giving a lot of tax subsidies. They're giving a lot of job cuts. I mean, job rate cuts also. So US government is actually helping in all these strategies to be implemented in the US for sure. Recently, we saw an example of Birla, where they are setting up a carbon factory in South Carolina, where there's I mean, the US best part is different states operate in a different way, and the way the subsidies are being given in different states is highly remarkable. And those are the strategies which I believe, from long-term perspective, Indian companies 100% should take it. A lot of M&As are happening right now, so it's time for the companies to become local, and the best way to become local is by getting into the M&A transactions. What I also see is the companies that are getting sold over here in the US is at a very, very good price. So that's another advantage and opportunity which companies can take, because of the very, very good valuation that the companies are giving in the US right now. So I mean, to summarize everything, there is different strategies that companies, based on the time horizon, there is short term, there is medium term, and there is long term. But I would definitely emphasize on companies to come and become local in the US. That way, you can have a very good market share at a very good, decent time frame, and at the same time reduce the tariffs. That's my take in terms of how you can handle this. I believe it's a great opportunity for Indian companies to rethink their business strategy and ensure there is better resilience being built in the entire restructuring process now.
Perfect. Thank you, Pratik bhai. Thank you very much for this. And I think you very categorically put down the points that while one has to build the resilience strategy for US,
hello.
but it's
Hi,
important.
Good to meet you. Sorry, आज बड़ा traffic तो यार Delhi.
Amit bhai, can you put on mute, please? Thanks. So, but what is very important is, as you mentioned, that look, US obviously is a big market. It's a market of opportunities. Do not lose the momentum. Do not lose the opportunities. This is just a temporary phase. This will get over. And while we plan the resilience, while we plan the supply chain, while we do the fractional analysis of where the goods are coming in from, how you are exporting to US, but at the same time, the dimension you brought on the table was look at acquiring a US company, because the moment you have a base in US, it could also, in a longer term, play the whole game changer and be a game changer for you. So thank you very much for this, Pratik bhai. I would request you to just close the slides so that we will put the, if you can just put the slides, because there are questions from people. Just close the PowerPoint. So let me, in the meanwhile, look at the questions, because there were some questions that we have received from people. So the first question is, should Indian MNCs company look at diversifying in markets like Africa or Latin America, or start setting up manufacturing units in US? Which approach is viable? Who would take this question? I think maybe I'll ask Pratik bhai. You want to speak upon this, because this is more to do with manufacturing.
Exactly. As what I told. I mean, the company needs to think long term now. Setting up in Africa, setting up in other countries, right? Great options, no doubt about it. Okay, but these are all short term, is what I look at it. I mean, because even from the investment perspective, right? If you come in the US right now, government is open over here. The government is open to give you subsidies. Government is open to give you the best rate possible right now, because they want to create jobs over here right now. Okay. And I think it's an advantage right now to come and invest in the US, because you have amazing structure which is already being built over here in terms of not only the tax reduction, but also in terms of a support system, the government could offer, which I believe setting up something outside US could be a tricky way also, because of the rule of origin and all the stuff. So might as well just not think in that direction. I would say come and invest in the US. And there are different states in the US which is offering you land at a very good price, which is unbelievable prices, like South Carolina, North Carolina. These places are booming. These places are growing like anything right now. So I believe, I mean, in terms of, if you ask me about the strategy, in terms of long-term vision, 100% come to the US.
Yeah, thank you, Pratik bhai. Then another question was, want to understand mode of operation of trade to US through UK. So I think, as some of the person has already identified, that FTA is obviously between US and UK being worked out. So certainly, if you want to route through US using UK, again, important is to see the the issues like goods of where the origin is, where the supply chain is established, and things like that, and also consider the compliances that has increased in US. So just don't jump the gun on deciding something that today we have to do something. Let's do that. No, do a complete dissection of where your supply chain is, how resilient your supply chain is, where are you putting the value chain in the whole process, and then what is the up to the US level, what is the kind of compliances one has to follow. So this is how I would say. So simply just by routing your transshipment from UK to US may not be as simple as it may appear, is what I have understood from this. Because if Anuragji, Pratik Bhai, or Amit Bhai, you want to add on anything, let me know.
So just a couple of points.
Yes.
You can only use UK to supply to US when you are able to add sufficient value
Yeah.
in terms of changing the identity of the product, value addition in percentage, and so on and so forth in UK. It cannot be an Indian origin product which is simply transshipped through UK.
Yeah.
It will not help you. So then whether UK will have a free trade agreement with US, or whether only the present limited deal will continue, that is a different aspect. But you have to add value in UK so that product becomes a UK origin product.
Thank you so much, Anuragji. And is there a percentage that you would tell people that at least 30% or 40% or 50%, or is it very country specific, Anuragji?
It is very country specific as well as product specific.
Okay.
So
Very
for
clear.
depending on the product and country, it will have to be analyzed.
Thank you. Next question is, do you think the benefits of USMCA reduce given the current US-Canada fragile ties? Do you think the benefits will reduce? So is the question being referred to the US-Canada treaty, Sarvaji? This is a question from Sarva Chakrabarti. Are you referring
Yes,
that?
sir.
So you're saying that benefits of you reduce. The question is whether will that reduce, or do you think? I mean, it's not very clear from your question.
So my question is that whether the benefits of the USMCA will be reduced for other countries who will kind of ship their goods to the US via these treaty, because so currently even Trump is threatening that he will put tariffs on Canada, and he will try to announce that Canada will be this particular state of the US. That's my question.
Already just answer that one. Even if you have to use Canada, if you have to replace UK with Canada, I think same thing will apply. What is the value addition in that particular country? What is the classification code, product code that you are transferring, and what is the value addition that you have actually done in Canada? And that would depend between Canada and US at what percentage one would. So it needs to be looked more carefully.
Got it, sir.
I hope that answers your questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Ashish was asking a question. Mr. Reeve is workforce available in US to take up manufacturing? So very important question, because now while everybody is saying move to US, I want to manufacture in America, but the real question is, do we even have people who can do the manufacturing in US? So Pratik Bhai, would love to hear your views on this question.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very big issue right now that's happening right now. Workforce in the US is majorly, you see people from Mexico, you see people from different countries coming in the US, right? A lot of them legal, illegal, those things are happening. A lot of deportation is happening. So workforce is getting affected in the US, no doubt about it. What they're saying is all the manufacturing setup will be robotic over here, right? So that's another take that people are talking about in the US is if everything gets robotic over here, you really don't require those legal and illegal people. That's what the take is. But I think that's a very, very long term perspective. I don't think that's really possible. Workforce is an issue, but there are ways of getting employees from India to the US. There are ways of sponsorship. So I think yes, the workforce, if you ask me, is definitely a problem. No doubt about it.
It's a challenge. So to put it in a nutshell, workforce is a challenge. So while President Trump says come and manufacture in US, it's not as easy as it sounds like. But I think while there is a challenge, what is important is, again, as you emphasized, the land prices, the subsidies, the grants, the tax incentives that states are offering are so huge that even if you have to pay an extra amount on labor, I think the offsets are going to be far more marginally beneficial to the companies in the longer term than in a shorter term.
The best example I was actually giving was for Birla, because it's in the news. They invested $1 billion for the carbon factory, and they got $130 million subsidy from the state government.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So for companies, Indian companies looking at US, consider some setup or maybe an acquisition in US and see how you can benefit from the grants and subsidies that US government offers. Alokji, your question was, do you all foresee any taxes coming in the way for service industries? Now, very important question, because this has been in the news that Mr. Trump was considering putting even the IT industry into turmoil with these tariffs. So far, I mean, as I know that there have been discussions around that they want to put it, but again, today's remark of Mr. Trump on India, and especially in particular to Prime Minister Modi, was clear message of him moving from the position of just holding up against the ties with India. So I think this will not, in my particular view, I don't see this happening in the near future. But I don't know if anybody else, Anuragji or Amit Bhai or Pradeekji, if you differ from my viewpoint on IT services.
But it looks like since it's a very big industry, US would have some taxes on it. I think so.
Would add taxes over there, is it? Or they restrict certain visas or something else?
There will be a lot of changes in the technology industry for sure.
Okay.
Visa is definitely one of the biggest things I would think of, and also the way the companies are getting their work outsourced in India or outside US, right? There would be some tax implications on that also.
Okay. Right then. Thanks, Mr. Pratik.
Thanks, Alokji. Thanks, Pratik.
Thank
There
you.
is a question from.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a question from. So last two questions I will pick up, given the paucity of time. So the question is: we are a logistics company who provides assembly services in their warehouses, which we could also offer in the US. We can offer our Indian clients to, instead of doing the fine assembly here in India, but doing that in US. When are the products considered to be components at lower tariff, and when is it a whole good? I think very interesting question. So maybe I'll look at Anuragji. Anuragji, did you hear that question?
Yeah. Can you please repeat once?
I will repeat the question. So the question says this is from Ruth Bonds. Hello, we are a logistics company who also provide assembly services in their warehouses, which we could also offer in the US. We can offer our Indian clients to, instead of doing final assembly here in India, but doing that in US. So the question is that there are logistics companies who provide assembly services. So they're saying instead of doing the assembly services in India, can they do it in US? And if yes, when are the products considered to be components at lower tariff? And
Sir, if you allow, I'll explain it with a visual example. I was the other week at a client of ours. They produce medical devices here in India. Most parts come from India itself. Certain components come from China, the electronic parts. And what they basically do is they have the two outer things to put the electronics in, and they screw it. It's quite a simple operation, but now they had to pull back a container full of these products, which was already on the way to Navashita, to the port, because of the tariffs. And while talking, we suggested in our warehouses in the US, we actually can also do the final assembly of putting in those 4 screws and let those components be shipped from the electronics from China and the housing from India. And then you might mitigate these tariffs if it's done in a warehouse. But the big question is, when is a product considered a product with high tariffs, and when is it a component, and would a component have lower tariffs in that case? At least the sales price is a lot lower, so the effect of the tariffs is at least lower, but maybe even the tariffs on components, the percentage is even lower as such. So that's the background of the question.
So got your question, and thanks for explaining it. Now, there are two things here. Once, rather than a fully assembled product, if sub-assembly is sent, then the price would be a bit less. Since the price would be a bit less, the reciprocal tariff attracted would also be a bit less. So that is a clear saving, provided companies which are affected in India can take this route. Because many of the companies which are affected in India are in sectors like footwear, textiles, and gems and jewelry, and so on and so forth, who would not be able to take this benefit, but companies can definitely consider. This is one point. Second, the reduction in tariff. The tariff is not based on. So generally, how the tariffs are based are on inputs, raw materials, subcomponents. The layering of tariff happens, and the tariffs on the finished goods are at the highest. But the US additional tariffs are designed differently. They are designed on the country-specific basis and the sector-specific basis. So the tariff rate fluctuation may or may not happen. That depends on the product and the way the sub-assemblies are sent. But so this second point will have to be seen. But first point is clearly there. If rather than selling a product for 100 USD, if you're selling it at 80 USD, then rather than attracting a 50 USD additional tariff, one will attract a 40 USD additional tariff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Anurag. Thank you so much, Anurag. I think I'll just take this last question. So from Upinder Soniji, where manufacturing is a process involved in more than one country, to establish the final country of origin, is there a thumb rule as to the percentage of value production? Then one can consider what is the sufficient value add in addition to percentage. Is there a rule of thumb? So I think Upinderji, this was clearly articulated by Anuragji. This will really depend upon country to country specific situation. And the moment, what percentage will then depend upon that country to that. For example, the UK case was given exclusively, we just discussed UK-US situation. So again, under the FTA of defined between UK and US, when does a product is considered under what HSM code and what value addition have you done in UK will define, how, if there are 3 manufacturing chains have been added, what percentage have been added in UK. So I think this was, again, this is very, very fine print, which one needs to look at. So this is what I think, Anuragji just explained. Anuragji, do you want to put on something else?
It's quite subjective right now.
Yes, quite subjective. Yeah. Okay. I think, guys, for the paucity of time, I know there has been an enormous interest. This is a very interesting topic. Thank you very much all for joining us for this wonderful webinar on dealing with realigning the strategy of a company doing business in US. I hope all of you enjoyed this session. On behalf of India Business House, on behalf of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industries, on behalf of TiE Amsterdam, and on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants Germany and Netherlands chapter, and Valuation Group, I thank all of you for giving a very patient listening in the last 1 hour. I hope this was useful to all of you. We will put the video on the YouTube, so those who have missed can still get a chance to hear this out. And if you have any questions, do reach out to us. We will be more than happy to navigate the charter of making the complexities turn into ease, for companies looking at US. So wishing you all a very nice evening, very nice afternoon, and very nice morning, whichever part of the world you are in. We had 100+ people watching this program in the last 1 hour. Thank you so much. Namaste. Very warm.
Thank you, Vikasji. Thanks to you
Namaskar.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.